Punk Revolution now. Today we are going to be reviewing Jane Remover. What an interesting artist. By the way, I'm so happy to be reviewing an album again. It's been so long and I finally have my shiz back together so I can review things. So I'm excited and I'm very happy that the review I'm returning with is Jane Remover, because Jane Remover is such an interesting artist. How do you explain Jane Remover? Because a lot of people who maybe when they first were introduced to Jane Remover, you can listen to some of Jane Remover's earlier stuff with like Teen Week or Daria Core, stuff that is just explicitly in the world of digicore, hyperpop, electronic dance music. Very, I'm gonna be honest, the people who make digicore, the people who listen to digicore, the people who are involved in the digicore hyperpop community are very much younger folks on the internet who like to have fun. And that's a great, awesome genre for sure. But Jane Remover, with her album Frailty that came out a couple of years ago, showed the world, that stuff, it's cool and great, but there's more to me than just making fun hyperpop, digicore, electronic music. You can't really call Frailty hyperpop anymore. You can maybe tell there's some of that influence is still in there, but she really moved in a direction where she was making more like emotional, glitchy, indie, artsy pop with plenty of that kind of like digital influence. But she showed the world there's more to her than just fun internet music. She is a true artist with Frailty. And now we have her newest album, Census Designated, where, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about it when we get into the review, is a very mature, very thoughtful album that shows she is not just a hyperpoop. I'm going to start calling hyperpop hyperpoop. I'm the very first person to ever call hyperpop hyperpoop. So maybe if that's going to be a trademark that I invented. So, anyways, whatever. Enough of the backstory. Let's just get to the album. Let's just start by taking a look at the album cover of Census. This is quite a visually intriguing album artwork. It actually reminds me quite a bit of that one artwork that is by Andrew Wyeth of that woman who's laying in the field looking away, you know what I mean? Like this way. Whatever direction that is. Looking away from the place, looking away from you. Both of them have that, and they both have that field, and then a similar architecture of the house in that corner there. I don't know if that was an intentional thing, or if it's just a coincidence. Regardless, it's a cool-looking album artwork, and it reminds me of art that I also like, so that's cool. And, I'm looking at this. I think it's just a very pretty cover. Not entirely sure if I can draw any connections here between the title Census Designated with the album artwork. I don't think maybe there's a connection that I'm missing. I don't know. When I see the title Census Designated, I've been, listening to this album trying to understand, why is that the title of the album besides the fact that one of the highlight songs on the album is titled Census Designated? And my guess, I actually don't know for sure, so let me know your thoughts in the comments. My guess is that because a lot of these lyrical themes here are about intense relationships, romantic and sexual relationships, and maybe Jane Remover is kind of feeling boxed in and stereotyped and, mistreated. And I don't know, when I just kind of think of like Census Designated, you're taking someone and you're categorizing them and putting them into a certain slot, and maybe Jane Remover feels like the romantic partners are mistreating her in that sort of way. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are on the cover and on the title, and let me know if I'm missing something. So musically, the album Census Designated is, well, I would recommend actually listening and approaching this album, basically just trying to, not even think about the stuff that Jane Remover has done in the past. I like to kind of think of it just as a cohesive, I think the artistic journey of Jane Remover has been fascinating, but if you're someone who really, really loves Frailty or Jane Remover's earlier stuff and you're excited for a sequel, Census Designated is not a sequel. It is a fundamentally rock album first, shoegaze post-rock album first. It puts that foot forward. I think a lot of people are going to think of Census Designated as a digicore hyperpop artist attempting to make shoegaze and post-rock, and yeah, I mean, I guess that's technically one way to think about it, but I think that's honestly not the correct framing. I think the best way to think of this record is that it's an emo, shoegaze, post-rock record made by someone who just so happens to have had that hyperpop and digicore experience in the past. It has, you're gonna hear throughout this record kind of like maybe a little bit autotune-y stuff going on there, maybe some sort of like, background like auto-tune, like woo, like ad-lib sort of background vocals and stuff like that, and very digital drums and digital like glitchy noise. So the digital experience is there, and it helps make this album into something unique, and it helps it make it to be a shoegaze record that's not like your other shoegaze records, but it's not the defining feature by any means, because what we got here is, like I said, it's a rock album first. You got this, like the chords used throughout this record are chords that you could find in like emo or like grunge, just like 3 chords. It's rock, and it builds. It actually opens with a song with like no drums at all, and it sounds so angelic, just like a lot of like ooh, like swelling of the feedbacking shoegazy guitar, lots of reverb, maybe some synths in there. I don't know if they're synths or if they're guitars or whatever's going on. It's very angelic and very beautiful, and you're like, okay, this is pretty cool. And you got that beautiful like the vocals are so like, singing like a higher pitched stuff that's very like, it's very angelic. Angelic is the key word, and that's freaking cool. And then once you get to the second song onwards, then you're gonna get some of those epic, okay, now we're actually hitting the distortion pedal on. It's still reverby and angelic, but the noise, it gets pretty darn noisy at some points. Like, you can call it noise pop, you can call it shoegaze. Maybe at some points in the album, the chords get heavy enough, you can call it even just like a tinge of metal influence. What you hear is like the noise is freaking noisy, and the drums come in, and we're talking about, like from na 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 angelic stuff to like boom 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 boom, like banging your head. Like that is a climax. That's shoegaze post rock for you. It is gigantic. When the shoegaze stuff really hits, when the crescendos really hit, my mind actually goes to places like Have a Nice Life's Death Consciousness, because Have a Nice Life's Death Consciousness is that shoegaze that's just kind of massive and suffocating. It's very gloomy and doomy, and sometimes the shoegaze in Jane Remover, it gets pretty doomy and gloomy and pretty heavy. To combine that doomy, gloomy, heavy shoegaze rock, emo, whatever you want to call it, with this sort of like digital, you can just tell Jane Remover, this is like the scene where Jane Remover really got her footing, was this kind of digital internet scene. To have that kind of like glitchiness and influence, that the auto-tune stuff kind of come through, it's like, I don't know, like sometimes when I'm listening to like Blade, like I'm listening to like that kind of like emo rap stuff, it's very angelic and very beautiful. I love that stuff. That I feel like sometimes like that emotional singing and digital aspects are just kind of like coming in just a little bit in Census Designated. So now I'm like, okay, so is this like, an album that I'm legitimately saying has both, is reminding me both of Blade and Have a Nice Life? Yes, it is, and it actually works quite well, because Jane Remover's beautiful and very, angelic and emotional vocal delivery is very up here, very like sensitive and emotional and reverby, and then you have down here the guitars that are just kind of chugging away those heavy, powerful chords, and it's a very emo thing that they're doing. Just the fact that when you got those heavy chords that get like, a little bit lower and deeper, that it reminds me just a tad of metal, and then you got that shoegaze metal with that beautiful angelic voice, and then my brain is going to like, this kind of reminds me a bit of Deftones as well, because that's what Deftones also really brings to the table, is that, angelic vocals combining with shoegaze metal. I could go on a long list of different influences and stuff I'm hearing here, but truthfully, this is a very unique record. I feel like it's just an album that can only exist in 2023. This is not an album where some music fan is like, I really like this genre, I really like these albums from the 90s, I'm going to try to recreate a 90s record in 2023, or recreate a 70s record in 2023. No, you can't. You will not find a record like this in the 90s or the 70s. This is an album that only can exist in 2023. Like, we're taking some of the best aspects of what you can find from like the glitchy kind of modern internet music, just a tinge of that, and then you're combining it with the coolest stuff of the 90s, and it just feels like such an authentic emotional record that way. So you got the opening track, which is this beautiful angelic experience with no drums. You got Lips, which is quite interesting because it also, like, the first half has this sort of angelic kind of experience going on, beautiful vocals, but it actually kind of, it's just a little bit sour with a little bit of dissonance there, and that actually kind of reminds me a bit of My Bloody Valentine's Isn't Anything, the way that Isn't Anything, the second track on that album, Lose My Breath, also just in the second track of your album, you're just going to go ahead and put a very dissonant chord progression melody. Seems like Jane Remover was taking kind of a similar risk there, and then that, of course, with Lips, it crescendos into a big, epic explosion in the second half. But I feel like the album really takes off with Backseat Girl, which is taking all these really interesting shoegaze and digital elements together and combining it with a really, really phenomenal melody. I think that you've got this really, really interesting, unique formula that Jane Remover is combining these very interesting influences together, and then the thing that I think makes specific songs stand out a little bit more than others is when you have those phenomenal melodies that get stuck in your head, and absolutely you're going to find plenty of them throughout this album. I love the melody of Idling Somewhere. I love the way that song develops. A lot of these songs are quite long and take a lot of liberty to develop and grow more complex and bring in all, like, this is actually quite a dense record with a lot of different sounds and screams and textures throughout it. Of course, that's a big part of what makes shoegaze so appealing, is all those different textures. I love the melody of Always Have, Always Here. Na, 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 na. I just want to sway to that. Na, 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 na. You know, it's just emotional, beautiful melodies. Oh man, the music nerd in me is loving the cool guitars and the cool influences coming in, and then like the more emotional side of me is like, oh, I love the melodies and I'm swaying along with them. And I think my very favorite track on this album is Video, because that song, that melody just jams. It's just that melody and video just jams so deeply in me, and I love that guitar work as well. The lyrics, you know, I feel like are very centered around very intense relationship dynamics that are you know, kind of messy and challenging and difficult, and you know, heartbreak and chasing someone you love. And it's interesting because, you know, these are obviously, you know, this is a classic theme to write your lyrics around, but what I think Jane Remover brings to the table that makes these lyrics so unique is that they are so physical. They're so physical and intense. Like, a lot of the dynamics, I mean, like, you know, a key part of a lot of relationships is smex. It's smex, okay? So to be able to communicate the different, like, aggression and tension within these relationships through, like, these very smexual acts or smexual description, like carnal. It's not even necessarily about smex. It's just like the physical, like getting so physical and carnal with the lyrics, I think takes the emotion to where it really needs to be in order to explain, in order to draw those pictures of how intense these relationships are in the story. And you combine those heavy lyrics with these gorgeous vocals and just na, 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 na. Like, it's angelic. It's angelic. I do love the dynamics in this record. I love when it gets noisy. It gets very noisy. Like, it's the guitars are just like sometimes like shh, or like heavier than that. The vocals, when they're beautiful, they're very beautiful. So it's got that nice dynamic element to it. It's just a very unique record. It's super unique. It's so funny because I feel like I'm seeing people who are big Jane Remover fans. Some of them absolutely love this record, and some Jane Remover fans, understandably, aren't so in love with this record because of how different it is from the earlier Jane Remover stuff. Now, for me, I've always liked the early Jane Remover stuff, but it was never my ideal cup of tea. I've always appreciated it, but it was never my, like, favorite, like, genre I would pick out to listen to in my free time. And now, with Census Designated, as someone who primarily enjoys rock, I'm really rockin' with Census Designated. That was kind of a corny line. I'm rockin' with Census Designated because it's rock. So as someone who primarily enjoys rock, I see this as like a authentically, like, an actual rock record. And I think the fact that there's people who like Jane Remover's earlier stuff who has mixed feelings about this new one, and there's people like me who loves this new one more than Jane Remover's earlier stuff, to me it says this is actually an authentic, genuine Jane Remover putting her best foot forward on making an authentically very interesting, compelling rock record rather than anything you can just hand wave away as like, oh, this is just some digital artist who's just, trying to do a shoegaze thing because that's trendy or whatever. No, this is a really cool record. It is really cool. It is Jane Remover has done her homework. She knows how to put together a really badass emo song, and she knows how to combine that in a way that, frankly, a lot of artists couldn't. I don't even know how to start to go about making a record like this that combines that emo with shoegaze with that very, very thoughtful and intricately gently put together with those digital influences. With autotune, I would never think of autotune and shoegaze as something that would work, but it certainly works and it's innovative. So I think all that put together, how much I enjoy listening to this record and the innovation, I'm giving this an 8.7 out of 10. Awesome job, Jane Remover. I had a lot of fun listening to this. I had a lot of fun reviewing it, and I'm excited to just re-listen to it and excited to see what Jane Remover does next, because she has demonstrated she is she's got a lot of creativity and a lot of emotion that I'm just excited to see what she does next. So, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Please like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the album. Let me think of the review, and let me know in the comments, and like and subscribe, and I always appreciate it. Thanks so much. Shout out to Jane Remover, Punk Revolution, now.